birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Tamara. Happy birthday to you.
I am sorry for what I have done, but she deserved it. These chilling words echoed through the emergency dispatcher's headset on the morning of July 7, 2021. The caller was Aubrey Pule Padi, a 46-year-old man who had just committed an unthinkable act of violence against his estranged wife, Tamara. Just hours earlier, while their young daughter slept in the next room, Aubrey had meticulously executed a plan months in making. He broke into Tamara's home, hid inside waiting for her return, and set an alarm to ensure she would be asleep before his attack. Armed with knives, a hammer, and a metal exercise bar, he unleashed a brutal assault that would end Tamara's life. What drives a man to murder the mother of his children and then claim she deserved it? The answer lies in a disturbing pattern of control, jealousy, and escalating abuse that went undetected until it was too late. Welcome to Explosive True Crime Stories, where we go beyond the headlines to examine real cases and extract valuable lessons that could save lives. I'm Biseo, and today we're examining the tragic murder of Tamara Padi, a 43-year-old mother of two whose life was cut short by domestic violence. This isn't just another crime story. It's a critical examination of how controlling behavior escalates, how separation can trigger deadly violence, and what warning signs were missed. By understanding Tamara's story, we hope to equip you with knowledge that could protect you or someone you love from a similar fate. Before we continue, I want you to pay close attention to the warning signs we'll discuss in Tamara's story. Have you ever noticed a friend whose partner constantly checks their phone? Or perhaps someone who seems to have withdrawn from social activities after starting a new relationship? These behaviors might indicate something concerning beneath the surface. If this video resonates with your experiences or someone you know, please hit the like button and share it. Your simple action could place this crucial information in front of someone who desperately needs it. The comment section is open for your thoughts or questions about recognizing dangerous relationship patterns. In today's episode, we'll trace Tamara's journey from her early life in South Africa to building a new life in the United Kingdom. We'll explore how she pursued higher education while raising two daughters, and how her 14-year marriage to Aubrey Pule Padi gradually deteriorated. You'll learn about the critical weeks leading up to July 7, 2021, when Aubrey's controlling behavior intensified. We'll examine the premeditated nature of his attack, the aftermath of this tragedy, and its devastating impact on their children and community. Most importantly, we'll analyze the warning signs that preceded this violence and provide concrete advice on safety planning for those in dangerous relationships. We'll discuss how friends, family, and colleagues can recognize concerning behaviors and effectively intervene. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just what happened to Tamara, but how similar tragedies might be prevented in the future. Tamara Padi was born in Butterworth, a small town nestled in the Eastern Cape province of South Africa. Growing up in a country undergoing massive political transformation in the post-apartheid era, Tamara developed resilience and determination that would define her character throughout her life. She later moved to Khayelitsha, a vibrant township on the outskirts of Cape Town. It was here, against the backdrop of Table Mountain, that Tamara's path crossed with Aubrey Pule Padi. Aubrey, originally from Pretoria, was working for the South African Navy at the time. Their meeting seemed fortuitous, two ambitious individuals with dreams of building a prosperous future together. Their relationship blossomed quickly, with shared aspirations of advancement and family. Neither could have predicted how their story would unfold, nor how their initial connection would eventually transform into something destructive. In those early days in South Africa, there was only hope and possibility stretching before them. In 2004, Tamara and Aubrey made the life-changing decision to relocate to the United Kingdom. Like many immigrants, they were drawn by the promise of better opportunities and the chance to create a more secure future for the family they hoped to build. Leaving behind the familiar landscapes of South Africa, they embarked on the challenging journey of establishing themselves in a new country. The couple settled in Greater Manchester, adapting to British culture, weather, and systems. Those early years were marked by the typical struggles of immigrants, navigating unfamiliar bureaucracy, building social networks from scratch, and establishing professional credibility in a competitive job market. Yet Tamara approached these challenges with characteristic determination. While Aubrey continued his career path, Tamara began laying the groundwork for her own professional advancement. She recognized that education would be the key to unlocking opportunities in their adopted homeland, setting in motion her academic journey that would eventually lead to impressive achievements. Tamara's commitment to education revealed her extraordinary drive and intellect. Despite the demands of adapting to a new country and raising a young family, she pursued higher education with unwavering focus. Her academic journey culminated in earning a master's degree in law, a testament to her intellectual capabilities and determination to create better opportunities for herself and her children. This educational achievement wasn't merely about personal fulfillment. For Tamara, education represented security, independence, and the ability to provide for her daughters. Her law degree positioned her to pursue meaningful work in a respected profession, opening doors that might otherwise have remained closed to an immigrant woman. Alongside her academic pursuits, Tamara demonstrated entrepreneurial spirit. Together with Aubrey, she established Greenleaf Health and Social Care Ltd., a company providing care services for adults. This business venture showcased her compassion for vulnerable individuals and her desire to contribute meaningfully to her community while building financial stability. At the heart of Tamara's world were her two daughters, Tia and Mia. By the time of her death, they were 15 and 10 years old respectively, bright, loving girls who represented everything Tamara worked for. Throughout 14 years of marriage, Tamara created a home environment where her daughters could thrive, balancing her professional ambitions with dedicated motherhood. School runs, homework help, and nurturing her daughter's interests filled Tamara's days alongside her work and studies. Friends noted how she spoke about her girls with unmistakable pride, prioritizing their well-being and future prospects above all else. Even after separating from Aubrey in February 2021, Tamara worked to maintain stability for Tia and Mia, attempting to foster a cordial co-parenting relationship despite underlying tensions. Her role as a mother informed every decision she made, from pursuing education to ensure financial security, to the way she navigated the breakdown of her marriage with dignity and restraint. Those who knew Tamara consistently described her as a happy soul, whose joy was contagious. Colleagues spoke of her professionalism and compassion in her care work, while friends emphasized her loyalty and warmth. She possessed a remarkable ability to remain positive despite challenges, approaching life with an optimistic outlook that inspired others. In their heartbreaking tributes, her daughters captured her essence perfectly. Tia called her mother not only my mom but also my best friend, while Mia remembered her as always there for me, loving me wholeheartedly. Tamara was characterized by her infectious laugh, her dedication to helping others, and an unwavering commitment to creating a better future for her children. In February 2021, after 14 years of marriage, Tamara and Aubrey separated. While the public details of what precipitated their split remain limited, court records indicate that divorce proceedings were imminent. The separation marked a significant transition for the family, with Tamara maintaining the primary home for their daughters. Like many relationship breakdowns, theirs carried the complex emotional weight of shared history, children, and intertwined finances. For Tamara, the separation represented a chance to redefine her life on her own terms. What she couldn't have known was how dangerously Aubrey would respond to this shift in power dynamics. On the surface, Tamara and Aubrey appeared to manage their separation with maturity and pragmatism. They maintained not only a co-parenting relationship for their daughter's sake, but also continued their professional collaboration through Greenleaf Health and Social Care Ltd., the adult care company they had established together. This business partnership required regular communication and cooperation, creating a veneer of civility that masked growing tensions. To colleagues and acquaintances, they presented as a former couple who had moved beyond romantic attachment while preserving their shared interests. Tamara, in particular, seemed committed to maintaining this cordial dynamic, perhaps hoping to minimize disruption for Tia and Mia. The business connection also meant Aubrey retained legitimate reasons to remain involved in Tamara's daily life, blurring boundaries that might otherwise have been more clearly defined after separation. This professional entanglement created opportunities for continued contact that would ultimately facilitate Aubrey's escalating control and surveillance of his estranged wife. Behind the facade of amicable separation, Aubrey's behavior grew increasingly controlling and invasive. Approximately 2 weeks before the murder, Tamara caught him accessing her voicemail messages without permission, a significant breach of privacy that signaled his determination to monitor her communications and movements. In voicemail messages later discovered by police, Tamara described Aubrey's conduct as creepy, noting that his behavior was driving her away. These private reflections reveal her growing discomfort with the surveillance, though she may not have recognized these actions as dangerous warning signs of escalating abuse. Aubrey's monitoring extended beyond digital intrusion. He began tracking Tamara's whereabouts, noting her work schedule, and likely planning his attack based on this information. His behavior followed a classic pattern of post-separation control, where the abuser, having lost legitimate authority over their partner, resorts to intimidation and surveillance to maintain dominance. What makes this pattern particularly dangerous is how it often remains invisible to others. Tamara herself may have minimized these behaviors, perhaps attributing them to Aubrey's difficulty adjusting to the separation rather than recognizing them as precursors to violence. Friends and colleagues, seeing only their seemingly cordial interactions, had no way of knowing about the controlling behaviors occurring behind closed doors. On July 6, 2021, just 1 day before the murder, Aubrey's controlling behavior escalated to physical violence. While in Tamara's car, he demanded to see her mobile phone. When she refused this invasion of privacy, Aubrey punched her in the face, a shocking act of violence that foreshadowed the horror to come. Following this assault, Aubrey sent Tamara a series of text messages that alternated between apology and threat, a classic cycle of abuse. One message ominously concluded, "This is the last time you have disrespected me." These words, which would be presented as evidence in court, revealed his perception that Tamara's independence constituted disrespect, deserving punishment. Whether Tamara reported this assault to authorities remains unclear. Like many domestic violence victims, she may have hoped the incident was isolated or feared escalation if she involved police. What's certain is that within 24 hours of sending that threatening message, Aubrey would transform his implicit threat into deadly action. As we pause in Tamara's story, I want you to reflect. Would you recognize these warning signs if they appeared in your life or someone close to you? The phone checking, the monitoring of movements, the threatening messages, these aren't just relationship problems. They're potential indicators of deadly violence. With these implements of violence, Aubrey traveled to Tamara's home on Lake Road in Stalybridge, Greater Manchester. Using his knowledge of the property, gained during their marriage, he forcibly entered while Tamara was away working a night shift as a carer. This break-in demonstrated his determination to circumvent any boundaries Tamara had established following their separation. Once inside, Aubrey concealed himself within the home, essentially lying in wait for his victim. Most chillingly, he set an alarm on his mobile phone, allowing himself to sleep until the early morning hours when he anticipated Tamara would be deeply asleep and vulnerable. Judge Elizabeth Nichols would later highlight this detail during sentencing, noting that he set the alarm to ensure that your wife would be asleep before you attacked her. This level of premeditation, the gathering of weapons, the breaking and entering, the calculated timing, painted a picture not of impulsive rage, but of cold, deliberate intent to murder. At approximately 1:30 in the morning on July 7, 2021, Tamara Padi returned home from her late-night care visit, unaware of the danger lurking in her house. She was accompanied by a female colleague, who planned to rest briefly before continuing to her own home. The two women settled in for sleep, with Tamara's 10-year-old daughter Mia asleep in a nearby bedroom. Meanwhile, Aubrey remained hidden somewhere in the house, his alarm set for 3:30 a.m., a time he had calculated would find Tamara in her deepest sleep. For 2 hours, he waited silently as the unsuspecting women rested, his weapons at the ready. One can only imagine his state of mind during this waiting period, lying in the darkness, just rooms away from his sleeping daughter. At 3:30 a.m., Aubrey's alarm activated. He rose and moved toward Tamara's bedroom with deadly purpose, carrying the metal exercise bar he had brought specifically for the attack. The court would later hear how he set about Tamara with this weapon, beginning a brutal assault while she was at her most vulnerable. The violence Aubrey inflicted upon Tamara was both savage and methodical. Armed with the metal exercise bar, he began his assault while she slept, striking her repeatedly with devastating force. The court would later hear how the attack was so violent that Tamara sustained multiple defensive wounds, indicating she had awakened during the assault and desperately tried to protect herself. After this initial battery, believing Tamara might be dead, Aubrey attempted to flee the scene. However, upon hearing a noise, possibly Tamara's movements or sounds of distress, he made the calculated decision to return. This moment of decision reveals the depths of his determination to ensure Tamara would not survive. Returning to the bedroom, Aubrey retrieved one of the kitchen knives he had brought and proceeded to stab Tamara 8 times. These wounds, inflicted after she had already been severely beaten, demonstrated his intent to eliminate any chance of her survival. The medical evidence presented in court would show that these stab wounds were delivered with significant force, penetrating deep into vital areas. Throughout this horrific attack, Tamara's work colleague remained asleep in another room, while miraculously, as Judge Nichols would later note, their daughter mercifully slept through the violence occurring just rooms away from her. Despite the brutality and suddenness of the attack, Tamara Padi fought valiantly for her life. Forensic evidence presented in court revealed numerous defensive wounds on her arms and hands, silent testimony to her desperate struggle to ward off Aubrey's blows and protect herself from the knife. These defensive injuries told investigators a heartbreaking story of a woman who, despite being ambushed in her sleep, summoned extraordinary courage in her final moments. The pattern of these wounds suggested Tamara had raised her arms to shield herself and attempted to grab the weapons, actions requiring remarkable presence of mind in such a terrifying situation. After Aubrey fled, Tamara's colleague discovered her grievously injured but still clinging to life. Emergency services were called immediately, and paramedics worked frantically to stabilize her for transport to the hospital. Despite their best efforts and Tamara's own fierce will to survive, her injuries proved too severe. She was pronounced dead shortly after arrival at the hospital. In the early morning hours of July 7th, Tamara's colleague awoke to discover the horrific scene. Finding Tamara grievously wounded and bleeding profusely, she immediately called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within minutes, finding Tamara still alive but in critical condition. They worked urgently to stabilize her, applying pressure to the multiple stab wounds while administering life-saving interventions. Police secured the scene as Tamara was rushed to the hospital. Their focus split between preserving evidence and locating her 10-year-old daughter, who remained in the home. Officers found Mia still asleep, mercifully unaware of the violence that had occurred just rooms away. With gentle professionalism, they removed her from the crime scene before she could witness her mother's blood. At the hospital, medical staff fought desperately to save Tamara's life, but the combination of blunt force trauma and multiple stab wounds had caused catastrophic damage. Despite their efforts, Tamara was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. While emergency responders were fighting to save Tamara's life, Aubrey Padi was fleeing the scene. However, in a surprising turn, he soon called 999 himself. During this call, he made a full confession to the murder, uttering the chilling words that would later haunt the courtroom. "I am sorry for what I have done, but she deserved it." This attempt to justify his actions revealed the distorted thinking that often accompanies domestic homicide, the belief that the victim somehow provoked or deserved the violence inflicted upon them. Aubrey initially claimed he intended to take his own life, though he made no actual attempt to do so. In subsequent interviews, Aubrey continued this narrative of blame, suggesting Tamara had wronged him and driven him to violence. These justifications, far from mitigating his actions, would later be cited by the judge as evidence of his dangerous mindset and lack of genuine remorse. Police located and arrested Aubrey shortly after his confession call. When taken into custody, he was still in possession of bloodstained clothing and some of the weapons used in the attack. The evidence against him was overwhelming, his confession, physical evidence from the scene, and the documented history of controlling behavior and threats. In an unusual move for such a violent crime, Aubrey pleaded guilty to murder at Manchester Crown Court, sparing Tamara's family the trauma of a full trial. However, this plea did not appear to stem from genuine remorse, but rather an acknowledgement of the insurmountable evidence against him. During pre-sentencing hearings, prosecutors presented the extensive evidence of premeditation, including the arsenal of weapons Aubrey had brought to the scene and the alarm he had set to time his attack. They also highlighted the text message sent the day before. "This is the last time you have disrespected me," as evidence of his motive and intent. On September 27, 2021, Aubrey Pule Padi was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 23 years. In delivering the sentence, Judge Elizabeth Nichols offered a powerful rebuke of Aubrey's attempts to blame Tamara for his actions. "Like so much violence against women," she stated, "you tried to place the blame upon the victim, suggesting that she had wronged you and that you were driven to this conduct, even going so far as to say she deserved it." The judge continued with words that resonated far beyond the courtroom. "There are no excuses and no fault lies with the victim, Tamara. This offense is entirely your responsibility. No woman should have to endure at the hands of a man what Tamara did in her final hours." These statements not only addressed Aubrey directly, but spoke to the broader issue of victim blaming in cases of domestic violence, affirming Tamara's complete innocence in her own murder. The most profound impact of Tamara's murder fell upon her two daughters, Tia and Mia, aged 15 and 10 at the time. In heart-wrenching tributes, they revealed the devastating void left by their mother's absence. Tia expressed her double loss. "I not only lost my mom, but also my best friend all at once." She remembered Tamara as a happy and outgoing soul, who always knew how to put a smile on my face by just being your crazy happy self. Mia's tribute was equally poignant. "Tamara Padi was my mom and my friend. She was always there for me and loved me wholeheartedly. She promised that I would never have a reason to cry. I've come to realize crying is natural, so today I will cry. I love my mom." Beyond these immediate expressions of grief, the girls faced an unimaginable reality. Both parents effectively lost in a single night. Their father's actions not only robbed them of their mother, but also of their father, now serving a minimum 23-year sentence. The psychological impact of such trauma on children is profound and long-lasting, affecting their sense of security, their ability to form trusting relationships, and their overall development. The girls' future would now unfold without the mother who had worked so hard to create opportunities for them, leaving them to navigate adolescence and young adulthood, carrying the weight of this tragedy. The murder sent shockwaves through the Stalybridge community and beyond. Neighbors and colleagues expressed disbelief that such violence could erupt in their midst, particularly from a couple who had appeared cordial post-separation. Tamara's colleagues in the care sector organized a memorial service celebrating her compassion and dedication to vulnerable adults. Local domestic violence organizations used the case to highlight the dangers of post-separation abuse, organizing awareness campaigns and fundraising efforts in Tamara's name. These community responses served dual purposes, honoring Tamara's memory while channeling grief into action that might prevent similar tragedies in other families. Tamara's murder occurred during a period when domestic violence rates had surged dramatically. According to the Office for National Statistics, 8.1% of women aged 16 to 59 had experienced domestic abuse in the year ending March 2020. During the pandemic, this already alarming figure worsened significantly. A women's aid survey in June 2020 revealed increased demand across all support services, 58% of refuge services, 80% of community-based services, 91% of online support services, and 81% of telephone support services reported higher demand. These statistics contextualize Tamara's murder within a broader pattern of escalating domestic violence that accompanied the social and economic pressures of the pandemic. Examining Aubrey's behavior in the months and weeks before the murder reveals several critical warning signs that, in retrospect, indicated escalating danger. His unauthorized access of Tamara's voicemail messages approximately 2 weeks before the murder demonstrated a fundamental disrespect for boundaries and privacy, a common trait among abusers who view their partners as possessions rather than autonomous individuals. Tamara herself identified his behavior as creepy in messages discovered after her death, suggesting she felt uncomfortable but perhaps didn't recognize the full danger these privacy violations represented. The incident on July 6th, when Aubrey punched Tamara for refusing to let him see her phone, marked a critical escalation from controlling behavior to physical violence. His text message, "This is the last time you have disrespected me," revealed a mindset where Tamara's independence was interpreted as disrespect deserving punishment. This language of ownership and entitlement frequently precedes serious violence. Aubrey's perception that Tamara's refusal to comply with his demands constituted disrespect showed his belief that he retained authority over her despite their separation. These behaviors followed a classic pattern of coercive control, surveillance, isolation, and intimidation, culminating in violence when other control tactics failed. Recognizing these red flags as interconnected parts of an escalating pattern, rather than isolated incidents, is crucial for identifying high-risk situations before they turn deadly. Tamara's murder occurred approximately 5 months after her separation from Aubrey, aligning with research showing that women are at heightened risk of lethal violence during and after leaving abusive relationships. This counterintuitive reality, that leaving can temporarily increase danger, stems from the abuser's perception of losing control. When an abuser feels their control slipping away through separation, they may escalate to extreme violence as a final assertion of power. Tamara and Aubrey's continued business relationship and co-parenting arrangement meant boundaries remained blurred, creating opportunities for ongoing control and surveillance that might otherwise have been reduced through clearer separation. The period following separation requires particular vigilance and safety planning. Professionals working with domestic violence survivors increasingly recognize that the traditional advice to just leave must be accompanied by comprehensive safety strategies that acknowledge this heightened risk period. Tamara's case tragically illustrates how maintaining ties with an abusive former partner, even for legitimate reasons like co-parenting, can create dangerous vulnerabilities. For those experiencing domestic abuse, numerous resources exist that can provide crucial support, though many remain underutilized. National domestic violence hotlines offer 24-hour confidential support, safety planning, and referrals to local resources. These services can be accessed without leaving evidence on personal devices, a critical consideration when privacy violations are occurring. Legal protections include restraining orders and emergency protective orders that can legally bar abusers from contact. While not physical barriers, these create legal consequences for violations and can be essential components of safety planning. Many communities have domestic violence shelters providing emergency housing, though demand often exceeds capacity. Workplace domestic violence policies can create safety plans for employees experiencing abuse, including changed schedules, relocated workstations, and security measures. Financial assistance programs can address the economic barriers to leaving abusive relationships, while specialized counseling services offer emotional support and practical guidance through the complex process of establishing safety and independence. Effective safety planning must be individualized, but typically includes several key elements. First, creating an emergency bag containing essential documents, identification, birth certificates, financial information, medication, keys, and basic necessities, stored in a secure location outside the home or with a trusted person. Developing communication systems with trusted friends or family, using code words that signal danger without alerting the abuser can provide crucial emergency response. Varying daily routines, taking different routes to work or school, changing regular appointment times, makes movements less predictable and harder to track. Technology safety is increasingly important. Regularly checking devices for tracking applications, changing passwords frequently, and using devices the abuser hasn't accessed for sensitive communications. For those co-parenting with abusers, arranging child exchanges in public locations or using supervised exchange services can reduce dangerous direct contact. Most importantly, safety plans should evolve as circumstances change, with regular reassessment of risk factors and adjustment of strategies accordingly, ideally with professional guidance from domestic violence advocates. Bystanders, friends, family, colleagues, neighbors often notice concerning behaviors before victims themselves recognize the danger. Effective intervention begins with recognizing warning signs, controlling behaviors, isolation from friends and family, unexplained injuries, personality changes, or expressions of fear. When concerns arise, approach conversations with care. Express specific observations rather than judgments. Avoid criticizing the potential abuser directly, and focus on support rather than directing actions. Statements like, "I've noticed you seem anxious," when he calls, open dialogue more effectively than "he's controlling you." Practical support might include offering to store emergency documents, providing transportation to appointments, or being available for emergency calls. Familiarizing yourself with local resources allows you to share specific options rather than general advice. Most importantly, maintain connection even when advice isn't immediately taken. Abusers often systematically isolate victims, making consistent, non-judgmental presence invaluable. Sometimes simply saying, "I'm concerned about you, and I'm here whenever you need me," creates a lifeline that may eventually enable someone to reach safety. Tamara Padi's life cannot and should not be defined solely by its violent end. She was a woman of remarkable determination who crossed continents to build a better future, earned advanced education while raising 2 daughters, and touched countless lives through her work in adult care. Her legacy lives on in her children, who, despite unimaginable trauma, carry forward their mother's warmth, resilience, and capacity for joy. The tributes from those who knew her paint a portrait of a woman whose laughter filled rooms, whose ambition knew no bounds, and whose love for her daughters formed the cornerstone of her existence. In honoring Tamara's memory, we must see beyond the label of victim to recognize the fullness of her humanity, her dreams, her accomplishments, her daily acts of courage and kindness. Perhaps the most meaningful legacy we can offer Tamara is to ensure her story serves as a catalyst for change, preventing other families from experiencing similar heartbreak. Tamara's murder occurred within a societal context where domestic violence remains pervasive yet often invisible until it culminates in tragedy. The judge's powerful statement, "No woman should have to endure at the hands of a man what Tamara did," speaks to our collective responsibility to address the underlying attitudes that enable such violence. When abusers believe they are entitled to control their partners, when victims lack accessible pathways to safety, when warning signs go unrecognized by communities, we create environments where domestic homicides become possible. Addressing domestic violence requires more than individual interventions. It demands cultural transformation, institutional accountability, and sustained commitment to gender equality and respect. Prevention of domestic homicide begins long before violence erupts. It starts with teaching healthy relationship skills from childhood, challenging notions that equate love with possession, and fostering emotional intelligence across genders. It continues through creating communities where controlling behavior is recognized as dangerous rather than romantic. Effective prevention requires systems that respond appropriately to early warning signs, law enforcement that takes privacy violations seriously, healthcare providers who screen for abuse, workplaces that implement domestic violence policies, and courts that understand the dynamics of coercive control. Most importantly, prevention demands that we listen to and believe victims when they express concern, however subtle. Tamara described Aubrey's behavior as creepy before it turned deadly. How many lives might be saved if we treated such discomfort as the warning it often is? As we conclude Tamara's story, let us commit to creating a world where women can leave relationships without fearing for their lives, where Tamara's daughters and all children can grow up in safety, dignity, and peace. If this story moved you or taught you something valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Explosive True Crime Stories. Your support helps us continue creating content that could potentially save lives. Share this video with someone who might benefit from understanding these warning signs. In the comments, I'd love to hear about resources in your community for domestic violence survivors, or, if you're comfortable, experiences where you recognize concerning behavior early. Next week, We'll examine how digital evidence is revolutionizing domestic violence cases and helping secure convictions. Until then, stay safe, stay vigilant, and remember, recognizing patterns early can prevent tragedies.